Hey everyone, hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be deconstructing the Women's Prize Longlist in 2024. Now, if you're new to my channel, then just know that I am Shelly and I really love books and reading and I love book prizes. So this is squarely at the center of my channel. I also just read a ton of different things and make videos about that, about my reading life and books that I'm buying and my thoughts about reading and books and all of that kind of stuff. So if you are liking the vibes, I would encourage you to subscribe, stick around, and without any further rambling on, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. When I was doing my 2024 predictions for the long list, I had specific titles. The titles were more of a wish list moment, and my actual predictions was a formula. I used a couple of years of long list data to compile similarities between every long list, and I used that to help me predict like what will be on 2024's long list. And actually it worked. I'm shocked. It worked, y'all. I'm like so thrilled and excited and surprised, and it's actually been a lot more helpful than I thought it was going to be. Often I'm sort of at the mercy of the long list, the long list, my feelings about the long list, and the blurbs, or the inside cover where I'm just reading what the book is about. That sucks me in. This formula really helped me start to parse out what was on the long list, how many different genres were on the long list, and a better idea of what I might actually want to read. Because my goal is actually not to read all of the books on the long list. That's actually the opposite of my goal. My goal is to partake in a healthy way in which it doesn't take up my entire reading life. I want to read one or two books. I want them to be the books that are for me, the ones that align most with my taste, the ones that I will enjoy the most. And I have to do some critical thinking around that. And I don't want to just get swept away with feelings and picking up books that would be adventurous for me, that I don't think I'll actually really like, but I just want to go for it because the blurb sounded good, or because the copy was great, or so on and so forth. So the formula has actually helped with that. Let me flash the formula across the screen as well as the long list. So here's what I got right and wrong, but kind of in the best way. So the formula, there will be 2 to 3 big names. There is subjectivity as to what is a big name, but I will say that I got this right because at least two of the authors to me are big names. The first one being Anne Enright, the Wren. Anne Enright has been no stranger to the prize. She has been honored by the Women's Prize, I think 5 different times. She's also won the Booker. So her name is in prize circuits and she has had an incredible career. I've read one Anne Enright book called Actress, and it was incredible. It's a book that I don't talk about enough on my channel because it was a lot more impactful and interesting, because it parsed out. It was about a mother-daughter relationship that was very complicated, and I really enjoyed it. So, The Wren by Anne Enright made it. The other big name was, Kate Grenville with her book, The Restless, Dolly, Maunders. Kate Grenville has had 9 books published, and she's won the Women's Prize before. So even though I didn't know of her, I think she counts as a big name because she's won this prize. She's beat out all the other contenders. She's had a career for sure. And then the final name that I considered a big name is Isabella Hammad. Her book Enter Ghost. This is her second book that's been published, but both of them has had, I think, they've had their own success, their own running in terms of success. And when I saw that she had made the list, I recognized her name because of the rounds that she did on BookTube. So, again, it's a little bit subjective as to what you would call a big name, but I recognized her. So those are my 3 big names that I got correct. Woo! There was one Booker overlap. I actually got this title correct. It was the only title on my wish list that I got correct, and I was shook. I was shocked. It was Chetna Maroo's Western Lane. This is a book about grief and the game squash. It's a short little book, a teeny little thing. And I was just delighted that it's like I got 2 points for this. One for the fact that there was a Booker overlap. Chetna Maroo, I should clarify, was on the long list, and I think the short list for the Booker in 2023. And there seems to always be a book that makes it onto the long list for the Women's Prize that was on the Booker's long list from the previous year. And so Chetna Maroo did that. And this is her debut novel that has really just made the prize circuits. I'm surprised. Not that I've read it, but I'm just surprised at how much notoriety it's gotten thus far. The third is that my third prediction was that there will be 2 to 5 previously long-listed authors, and there were 3, so I got that correct. The 3 were The Wren by Anne Enright. Anne Enright's been honored 5 times. She's been longlisted 5 times, and she's been shortlisted 3 times, I think. I used some copy from The Guardian because The Guardian helped me with some of my reading and research. So I will leave their article actually about this long list linked down below. Kate Grenville, she actually has won, and she won in 2001 for her book, The Idea of Perfection. So that was not surprising. I've not heard of Grenville or The Idea of Perfection. So she was new to me, and I was like floored to find out that she's had such a successful writing career. And then the final is V.V. Ganeshananthan, who was her book in 2024 that's been longlisted is Brotherless Night. But the book that she wrote previously that was longlisted back in 2009 was Love Marriage. I said that there was going to be 5 to 9 debut authors, and there was 8. So one of the cool things about the Women's Prize is that they're trying to start women's writing careers. They're trying to give voice to the quieter women's writing voices, women's voices out there. And so I think part of the initiative of the prize is to choose the best debuts, or to choose several debuts. Like, that's part of their mission, to give these women like a kickstart for their career, which is really cool. So the 8 that made it, and I'll try and give you the summaries from which I know, but Chetna Maroo's Western Lane, which I already mentioned. The 8 Lives of a Century-Old Trickster by Mirinae Lee. Mirinae Lee. This is, I had heard or I had read that it reads like short stories about a woman who is at the end of her life, but is talking about her younger days and throughout her life. But they read like vignettes or short stories. So I thought that was, interesting, interconnected short stories. Sometimes that doesn't work for me. I'm kind of I'm unsure about the short story, but I thought it was neat that a book like this, made it on the list. There's also Maya Binyam's Hangman, which is supposed to be a tragic comedy. Surprised at the category, about a man returning to Africa in search of his brother, I believe. Then you have River East, River West, which is going to tell the story of 2 people. It tells the story of a young woman. It's a coming-of-age story. And her stepfather, whom they have a tension in their relationship. So it's going to tell her story, but also the story of her stepfather, who had a whole life before he entered her life. And maybe hopefully the resolution is that they find some common ground. So I thought that was interesting. And then I have In Defense of the Act by Effie Black. This is going to be about a woman researching the heavy topic of suicide. The most interesting thing about this book, though, is that when I first looked it up, there were 40 ratings on Goodreads. Like, nobody had heard of this book. It reminded me a little bit of Salt Lick, the book that was longlisted 2 years ago. similar similar thing had happened. It was like an unknown presser. Salt Lake was like crowdsourced. It was like not self-published quite, but there was something odd about the publishing. Nobody had read it. I have no idea how it even got onto the Women's Prize radar. Same thing with the Effie Black book. It's kind of like a book that nobody has heard of. So, at least in my opinion, 40 ratings is like, you know, that's your friends and family reading it and rating it. So, and I'm not being, not throwing any shade or anything. I'm just like, it is truly an unknown book, which is actually really cool. I should cycle back around and be like, that is actually really neat, because otherwise, I mean, that number would have maybe stayed at 40, and now now thousands of people will know of the book and it will be in our consciousness, but I'm sure hundreds of people are going to read it, which is just a huge feat for the writer to have made it on this long list, which is, again, very, very cool. Then we have The Maiden by Kate Foster. This is the story of a woman who committed murder a few hundred years ago, and it's the quest as to, like, is she a murderess? Is she a seductress? Is she insane? Truly, like, what's happening? This gives me Alias Grace vibes. And Alias Grace was one of those books that I could see why people like it, but it did not work for me. Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. And like, the writing was beautiful. It just didn't come together for me. And then because I like that book and it was recommended to me, a book similar to it was Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. Same idea. Is she, Burial Rites is set in Iceland with a woman who is convicted of murder. So it's like, did she do it? Is she innocent? Is she not? What's the deal with this woman? And getting her take on it all. And that book is actually working so well for me that I'm not really it's like scratching the itch of, like, you know, these questions that I tend to sort of gravitate towards. But I'm like, do I want to read another one of these books? It seems like one a year is enough for me. So I'm sorry, Kate Foster. I don't know if your book is going to be for me, but I'm glad to see you on the list. Then we have two other books, A Trace of the Sun, which is about a young man, I believe, a child grappling with the decisions his parents made. This is by Pam Williams. I've not heard of it, you know, huzzah for her for making the list, but I'm not super interested in this. And then the last one is And Then She Fell by Alicia Elliott. And Alicia Elliott, I believe, wrote, she has written a nonfiction book before. This is her first book, and it's about a woman, an Indigenous woman, who's a new mother grappling with motherhood, and you know, all that entails. I know I've lived through it. I have two myself, girl. The one, let me move on. The one prediction that I got incorrect, but in the best way, was that I said that 2 5 books were going to be set outside of the EU and the US. And actually 6 books have been set outside of the EU and the US. So we have 8 Lives of a Century-Old Trickster, mostly taking place in North Korea. Enter Ghost, taking place in Palestine. Brotherless Night is set in Sri Lanka. Nightbloom is set in Ghana. River East, River West, mostly set in China, or maybe one of the storylines is set in China. And Hangman, which is set in Africa. And then my final prediction was that there was going to be a mix of genres. Interestingly, though, they really honed in. This year's list, with a few exceptions, there's a lot of it is literary fiction. Like a lot more than I would have anticipated. There's usually like a comedy book and maybe a YA leaning book and maybe a fantasy. There just seems, in years past, there's been, it's what seems like to me a little bit more of a mix, like a strong mix, something that's maybe literary fiction, but also leans strongly into fantasy or leans strongly into historical fiction. So this is, we have a historical mystery, The Maiden, crime fiction, Ordinary Human Failings. Then we have a political fiction, which I was thrilled about. I love political fictions, and that is Isabella Hammad's Interghost. River East, River West is a coming-of-age story. And The Blue Beautiful World is a science fiction novel, and that's by Karen Lord. To me, that is the most unique choice that the prize has made. So I wanted to add, because I wanted to talk about the rest of the books, they've got a backlist. So I wanted to see in what range this has, you know, in where in their career this book is, right? Claire Kilroy's Soldier Sailor. This is a stream of consciousness book about motherhood. I think it's supposed to be funny, but I don't know the tea on it. Ben Reads Good loved it, apparently, and I need to like go and watch his review. It has risen in my interest more since I've learned more about it. And this is actually Kilroy's 5th novel. So I don't know where I've been, but I've never heard of her. But she has 5 books and out there published. Yeah, I'm like, wow. Okay. As I mentioned, Kate Grenville, she's the most seasoned author, Australian author. This is her 9th book that she's published, or that has been published, that she wrote, you know, and making the long list. Okay. Now, I feel like that came out weird. I'm not saying that this 9 books have made the long list. This is her 9th book that has been written. I think that's clear enough. Then we have Nightbloom by Peace Adaze Medie. This is her 2nd novel. I think this is a story about sisters, friends, something like that. Ordinary Human Failings by Megan Nolan is her 2nd novel. This is a crime fiction book, which actually really excited me because I've been really into murder mysteries this year. Isabella Hammad, this is her 2nd book. And I have this, I know that Megan Nolan had her 1st book, I think got quite a little bit of buzz. Like it came across my screen, it came across my desk. And then Isabella Hammad's 1st book also got a little bit of buzz, like enough to come across my desk. So I will leave those titles kind of flashing up so that you know what their 1st books were. And, you know, these women are on their 2nd novels. And then the last 3, Karen Lord. Her book is such a weird pick because it's like the 3rd book set in this universe that Karen Lord has created. And this is her 5th book that has been published. So just an odd choice for the Women's Prize. Brotherless Night, this is Vivi's, I'm not going to try that name again, this is her 2nd novel. And then Enright, it's her 8th novel. So it's like there are 8 writers in which these are their debut, and then there are, let's think, 1, 2, 3, 4, there are 4 authors in which this is only their 2nd book. And then 1, 2, 3, there are only 4 authors who have like a seasoned backlist, something really deep. And so it's just surprising. So let me show you what I picked up and actually what I want to read. So I have The Wren by Anne Enright. It matched. Ooh, we kind of match. I like that. This is a little bit different of a shade. I like Anne Enright's writing. I feel like I'm in good hands, and that's the main reason as to why I wanted to pick this up. We also have Interghost. I have been wanting to read about Palestine because of what's going on in the world, and I don't know, like, it's about a woman who's going back to her homeland, and she gets caught up in a theater group doing Shakespeare. And there's some commentary on women's roles, like women's roles, theater in Palestine, male-female relationships. Like, sign me up. This looks amazing. So I want to read this. The book that I've already made plans to read. Oh, another green. Maybe I knew. Ordinary Human Failings. This is set in Ireland, and this is like a crime noir book. I don't know. We'll see. I was like, I'm really into this kind of thing right now. Crime fiction. I think a girl goes missing and they have to go, I don't know. I'm not really exactly sure. It's more of the genre. 1990s in London. Oh, it's not set in Ireland. Obviously, I just said 1990s London. About a dead child at a London estate and the grieving parents, and they're pointing their fingers at Irish immigrants. There you go. So, I'm curious about that, and it's very short, and I've already made some plans to read it. And then the book that I picked up, but I actually don't think I'm going to read, but I did pick it up from my library, and it's River East, River West, and it's by Abu Ray Lescure. And it's not that there's just only so many books that I want to read, and I don't know, this wasn't really that high on my list. I wasn't sure how many books would be available at my library, so I picked this up, and then as I got it and I sampled all of the books, I was like, I think I'm just gonna let this one go. So let me know, what was your reaction to the list? I'm so glad my formula worked. It made me so excited. I was giddy. And I spent the last couple of days researching the list. The other book that's like mildly high on my list is Soldier Sailor. The themes and the stream of consciousness mixed with it being kind of funny is looping me in. But yeah, I don't know. We'll end up seeing what I actually read from the list. I can tell you that this will be a for sure. I've even started the first couple pages just to see, and I like it thus far. So yeah, what are you going to read from the list? What was your reaction? Has your thoughts evolved since your initial reaction? Again, I was thrilled, and I was really thrilled to have a structure to help deconstruct how I feel and help me like keep my head on straight, because again, I don't want to give all of my time to one prize list. That's just not the kind of reader I am. But I am glad to choose a couple that I'm going to like from the list, and I think that I have some really great selections in front of me. All right, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here and spending this time with me, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye!